you and I talked about that. That was a story for at least a week, and I think it dripped into the second week for sure.
Yeah.
Because the residue of those comments, like how would it impact some of his teammates when he walked back in? Could you trade him based on the finances, et cetera, et cetera? Well, he seems to be okay, and, at least for now, I think a lot of people think it might flare back up next year. But at least for now, things are kind of smoothed over, which is good. One of the best quarterbacks in football with a good team. Do you think, though, whether it's maybe doing things that they wouldn't have ordinarily done to appease him, to placate him? I mean, this is kind of similar to what we talked about with the Packers and Rodgers.
Yeah.
Should they not? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a little bit different because, I know that Russell Wilson put out these desired locations, right? If you're going to trade me, because he does have a no-trade clause. If you're going to trade me, this is where I want to go type of situation, then it almost puts the team on the defensive, like, oh, wait, hold on, like, what are we talking about here? Whereas with Aaron Rodgers, it was more, you guys disrespected me. This is now becoming an untenable situation. I'm most likely not going to be here, even though that one's calmed down. But I think what Russell did different is that he actually pointed to exactly what the issue was, right? It's like, I'm tired of getting sacked. I'm tired of leading the league in sacks, even though part of them are his fault, as we always talk about. At the end of the day, though, Russell Wilson knows that the bread is buttered very heftily by the Seattle Seahawks, and he's crafted quite a brand and a following and success in Seattle. So going elsewhere, while it seems like it could work out, as I always say, BT, no one loves you like your mama. That first team, nobody loves you like that, especially when you've won a Super Bowl and been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And so I think a cooler head prevailed, but his point was accomplished, right? His what he wanted to happen apparently came to fruition, and that's good for him, and I think it's good for Seattle. This one kind of died away, and I think it was a good thing that it did. Yeah,
certainly a good thing for now. Again, I'm of the belief it's going to probably flare back up, especially if they don't have the season that they expect to have and want to have. By the way, I think that by this being kicked down the road for a year, it also opens up a very interesting set of possibilities for teams that you and I have talked about that are still very much evaluating their quarterback position and aren't ready to pull the plug, and rightfully so. In these instances, you'll agree you shouldn't pull it now. But after one more year of evaluation, you might be inclined to do that. And some of those spots, and they're high-profile spots, the Giants.
Yeah, of course.
We like Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones has to play well this year. He's got some weapons.
He definitely does. And this is one of the locations that we speculated that Russell and Ciara, his wife, wanted to go to.
Correct.
New York, because of the high-profile nature of being the quarterback of the New York Giants.
Miami, Tua was a year behind Jones in terms of obviously having stuff on tape, but there were a lot of whispers about Tua this offseason. Didn't come to fruition. Doesn't mean that they can't. So if, Tua's not the guy, does that create a situation where maybe the Dolphins get very aggressive and don't want to necessarily draft somebody next year because they have kind of a ready-made team? They've got some good veterans. Maybe Russell Wilson, if things go sideways in Seattle this year and Miami, maybe the Dolphins are a destination.
Maybe. I mean, there's any number of destinations, but
Steelers.
The Steelers are probably the most prominent one after this season. I mean, I don't think Big Ben is going to announce that he's going to retire, but unless they, I don't know, unless they're just, I can't even imagine a situation where Big Ben is the quarterback for the foreseeable future for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I agree.
Right? I don't know if he even wants to.
I agree.
Right? I think honestly, BT, this feels like he's giving it one more run to try to win another championship.
But don't you get the impression that Ben is going to make it difficult for the Steelers to get rid of him? Like, I don't know if he's just going to so quickly at the end of this year, if he doesn't play great. I feel like maybe I don't believe that he's going to be done with football after this year. Maybe he's a lifer.
But think about this though, BT, because he's 38, right? So he's a year ahead of Rodgers, correct? I think that's right.
He's going to be 39. How old's Eli? Same draft class?
Yeah, Eli's 39. So I think he's got to be 39. I think he's a year ahead of Rodgers. But when you look at Big Ben, it's almost like, yeah, I can see the end, man. It could happen right now. Whereas I look at Aaron Rodgers and it's like, I don't really see the end yet. Right? Aaron can get there to 40. And so I don't know if it's necessarily that the Steelers are worried about how they're going to move on from Big Ben. I think the Steelers are worried about what happens if Big Ben moves on, right? Because, I mean, think about what they've done. They brought in, Dwayne Haskins, and, there's quarterbacks there in waiting. They re-signed Mason Rudolph. So there's quarterbacks there that are potential just in case they hit that moment where it's like, oh, man, we gotta figure out what we're doing without Ben.
Yeah, they'll never go into a season with Mason Rudolph number one on the depth chart. That's never going to happen.
I agree.
Ever.
Yeah, Big Ben turns 39 in March. Same with this road. So, no, you're right. But I don't feel like that they necessarily have a plan for what happens after next year. So the Steelers, to your point about Russell Wilson, if this thing gets sideways in Seattle after another year, that's definitely a destination for him, even though I don't know if that's necessarily a destination for his brand.
I was going to say, it doesn't feel like the most natural fit market and player, but still. The Raiders are always on that radar until Derek Carr either gets an extension or gets booted, and I don't know that he should get booted, nor do I necessarily think he should get an extension.
Yeah.
So I guess it's the year of evaluation here. But back to Wilson for a second. Like, to me, He aired some serious dirty laundry publicly with a prominent voice, Dan Patrick, right? I have a hard time believing that he is fully satisfied. Like, I think that he is, for the moment, he's been pacified, just for the moment. Like, all right, you know what? I'm okay for now. I think the wound or the anger or the displeasure, or however you want to frame it, is so deep in Russell Wilson, and maybe also clouded with a desire to relocate a brand, try something new. We know about his wife, as you said. I still think that next year it's going to be very tenuous in terms of footing for Russell Wilson. Put it this way. After this season, because they're not going to win the Super Bowl, after this season, I feel like we'll kind of be back in the same place. I don't know if he'll go back on a radio show and be as demonstrative publicly.
Yeah.
I don't know that. But I sense that those inner reservations will be communicated by his agent or by somebody, and he very well might get moved.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think this is a long-term thing necessarily.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it because it felt unnecessary this past offseason. He had a great start to the season. Now, things faded, as we all know, but it wasn't like he faded till he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the game. It just faded from this MVP level that he was on, and a lot of it was because he got hit so much. And I understand it. He's frustrated by that. But there's no guarantee that where you go, things are going to be different. I mean, maybe they will be, but you don't necessarily know that. And
that won't preclude you from maybe wanting to try. You're absolutely right.
That's exactly right.
It might be worse.
That's exactly right.
But he wouldn't be thinking that in the moment in real time.
Yeah, because it's a new challenge. Everybody loves new challenges. Well, and Russell Wilson has earned the right at this point, if he believes that Seattle has hit a dead-end point, not dissimilar to Tom Brady. Tom Brady knew that New England was at a dead-end point, so I got to use whatever resources I can to move myself away, and he did. He could have signed an extension. He didn't. He let his contract come to a natural conclusion and moved on. Now, Russell is not going to have that option because his contract doesn't naturally conclude like Tom's did, but I mean, he's got some power, and he proved it this offseason by just throwing a little bit of seeds out there that sprouted into webs of controversy.
They did.
It was a little crazy because it's not something we don't expect from Russell Wilson.
Yep. No, for sure. It was a deviation from character. There's no doubt. That's why when you deviate that much from who you've been your entire public life, it's all planned.
That's right.
It wasn't like he had this gross, unfortunate misstep on the Dan Patrick show and just pulled back the curtain so unnecessarily and in such a damaging manner that he just, how did I misspeak? How did I find myself in that situation? No. This was not, Cassidy Hubbard calling Michael Malone Mike.
Yeah.
This was well planned. This was well strategized. And for the most part, it was, even though you and I don't like the look, we think it's incredibly unprofessional, it got him what he wanted. So let me ask, at least temporarily, let me ask you, how do you think and we can contrast this to how LaFleur's handled things, which has been good. How Gutekunst is in the middle of this with the Packers. How do you think that Pete Carroll's handled everything from day one when this went awry with Russell Wilson? I don't mean the beginning of the I mean this year with the Dan Patrick incident.
Honestly, I think he's done the right thing because he's never contradicted his quarterback. He's just kind of acknowledged it and kind of ignored it in an interesting way. Now, obviously he's part of the personnel decisions that are being made and some of those things that acquiesced or at least placated Russell Wilson. But I think by not feeling compelled to either defend the organization or malign his quarterback or even like get his quarterbacks back, like he just kind of slow played it. And slow playing it sometimes when there's not really an issue, because there really isn't that. There's not something agreed. It's not like the Aaron Rodgers situation. So there's not really an issue. It's just a personnel type thing. Mm-hmm. He played it the right way, and I think that's that's something that's underappreciated a little bit about Pete Carroll, because a lot of head coaches are going to get drawn into that and make it worse, even though they're not necessarily trying to.
Well, that's a really good point, because the things that the Packers are trying to navigate, it's a deep, personal cut. Yeah. Whereas, which is much tougher to correct, as we know, just being human beings and our daily interactions. We've all had fallouts. We've all had situations where we either had to make amends or we chose not to make amends, based on whatever went down. But whereas with Seattle, Pete Carroll had the ability, put that in quotes, the ability to kind of sit back and be a little standoffish or detached from it, because it wasn't anybody like, I don't like this, I don't trust that guy, I'm not a fan of it. It was more, hey, I just need some upgrades here. So Pete Carroll probably went to the front office and said, yo, get him this or he's going to be gone. Yeah. And I want him to be my quarterback.
Agreed. We have a good thing going here. I still have a couple more years. Talking about Pete, I still have a couple more years as the head coach here. I'd love Russell Wilson to be my guy. If we're restarting with some young quarterback at the helm, then what's the point of me being here?
And they got Geno Smith, QB number 2.
You know what I mean.
It'll be a seamless transition. Geno's ready after all these years, right?
Maybe.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.